Hey everybody, welcome to Local Business Hacks Podcast. I'm your host, Carl Case, and I'm on a mission to help you. Every week, we're going to be talking to local business owners and experts to get their best tips, tricks, and hacks to grow your business. This show is designed to teach you, inspire you, and motivate you to take massive action and start to build your future-proof business. Whether you're just starting off or you're taking your existing business to the next level, this episode is for you. So let's get started. Hey, local business hackers. I'm your host, Director of Global Business Development for Referrizer, joined today by the one and only Anna Schaffer, VP of Ops and Business Development for Sugaring NYC. Welcome to the podcast, Anna.
Thank you so much, Carl. I'm so excited to be here.
So obviously you don't become a overnight head of business development and ops for an organization that is rapidly growing over the last couple of years throughout the States. Talk to me a little bit about how you got here and the journey there through.
Sure. My previous career was mostly in medical science education. And I started out doing branding and marketing for some dermatology medical companies. And when you do marketing in healthcare, kind of eventually it's inevitable that you're going to work with pharmaceutical companies and get into education. And so over time, with some people that I was working with, we just really noticed a gap in some of the needs and what was provided in medical education. Because if you've ever been to a medical conference, there's just so much medical big shots in the industry giving presentations, but the presentations are more like, oh, look at this awesome stuff I'm doing. You know, they're not really interactive. They're very didactic. They're sitting in a lecture all day. And so I helped co-found a company that just took a different approach to medical education, and all the lectures were interactive case discussions. So no one could gatekeep. No one could just say, look at this great case. Amazing. They would have to really walk people through and answer questions from the audience. And it was a kind of relatively new format at the time where we would pair residents with speakers. So they would prepare the presentations. So the speakers didn't have to actually prepare anything. And because of that, because it was so easy for them, they love to participate, connect with residents. The residents are dying to work with these thought leaders in the industry. The lectures were amazing. It was great for everybody. And that really kind of drove me from, in a weird way, from marketing to operations, because I just learned, I don't know, it just kind of opened my eyes. And also, I think all of us are trying to sublimate our natural tendencies into a career that's most natural for us. And anybody who's like a little neuroatypical in terms of patterns is like operations is like a dream, because you just look at the systems, you look at the way things flow, and you can really sublimate all your neuroticism into making real positive change. So working in medical science education, really, there's three parts that really kind of informed how I ended up in my position today. One is experience curation, because I learned very quickly that people approach anything, and there's this algorithm between the content versus the experience, right? So you could go to a conference that has the most amazing content you've ever heard, and you can learn so much. But if it's not a physically comfortable place to be, if it's in like, a crappy hotel, the food is bad, the room's not comfortable, you're probably not going to go back next year, even if you learned a lot. But if the content isn't that great, but the experience is amazing, people will come back. So making sure that the experience is worthwhile really actually gives you way more wiggle room in terms of everything else, as long as you make sure that's in place. So one was the experience curation and the event itself. So that's like one leg of it. The other is the actual content, which is staying on top of the science to decide what doctors should learn and developing curriculums that are actually going to be exciting for people and not same old, same old. And then also there's the whole pharmaceutical sponsorship side of it, which is basically like running a mini agency and all kinds of compliance and legal stuff, and really actually tailoring everything to be compliant within every single pharmaceutical company, because they all have different interpretations of every law. And what's compliant for one company, is it compliant for another, and just making sure everyone's happy and nobody gets in trouble will take you very far in that industry. And also, when you work with conferences, you really learn about herding tremendously large groups of people and transferring information and developing systems that are organic and intuitive so that they can run themselves. All of that, when the opportunity came for me to join Sugaring, made it a really organic transition for me. I also always really loved beauty and skincare. Dermatology is a fancy specialty. So there was always a lot of aesthetics involved, and knowing a lot of skin science made it really easy for me to join a beauty company as opposed to if I had come from a food franchise.
Of course.
So that's how I ended up with Sugaring. I knew the owner of the company before. I'd known them for a long time, and we'd always wanted an opportunity to work together. And I knew them when they started the company. The owner, Daria, they're both immigrants. They are Russian and Ukrainian. I knew Daria when she started Sugaring professionally in 2014. Sugaring itself is the oldest form of hair removal in human civilization. If you have any old European relatives, you probably had grandmas and aunts that did it. My mother did it. Being a typical adolescent, I wanted nothing to do with it at the time. And now here I am, neck deep. And being an adult now and having so much more experience with other forms of hair removal, it just became so obvious that it actually is better. I mean, have you ever had anything waxed, Carl?
Yeah, I've had my eyebrows waxed. I tried a little piece of my arm once just to feel the pain that was in the 40-Year-Old Virgin when that movie came out. That was hilarious. But
I was wondering what the context was for you to just do a little piece of your arm. That makes sense.
Yeah, it was just to feel what Steve Carell was feeling because it was too epic of a scene. But yeah, I would say that it's painful. It rips my skin off, and I never wanted to do it again.
Yeah. And it also, just as a client who does it on a regular basis, if you get like a little bit of wax on your clothes, just forget it. It's like impossible to get off. And like your skin is sticky when you leave. You really definitely can't get waxed and go on a date right away. Like there has to be some showering and lotioning happening in between. But sugaring is totally different because wax adheres to the skin and the hair. So when it's pulled, it's kind of like ripping a Band-Aid, but the sugar only adheres to the hair. And I'm also very sensitive. And like every time I ever got waxed, I would lose some skin with it. But the sugaring, because it's water soluble, it doesn't adhere to the skin or live tissue. So it only adheres to the hair. It just pulls the hair. And when I joined the company, I learned how to sugar just to familiarize myself with the process. I was actually doing it on my boss's legs. And she had a little bit of a sunburn, so her skin was a little bit peely. And I was like sweating. I was like, oh my God, I'm just going to rip my boss's skin off. This is great. But it didn't even take off the peely skin. It just only stuck to the hair. And I was amazed. I mean, you join a company, you're ready to drink the Kool-Aid and, okay, internalize the spiel, but I wasn't really totally ready to actually buy into it. And a lot of people, especially in some markets like New York and LA, they do laser hair removal. So listen, I come from dermatology. I know all the lies they tell you about laser hair removal, and it's permanent and guaranteed results and you never have to do it again. And the truth is you will always have to touch up, and especially in high blood flow areas. And for me personally, I had free laser hair removal for almost 20 years. And in between lasering and touch up, like, do I want to shave things or do I want to do something that's going to last a long time and be kind to my skin? And the answer is sugaring.
Which brings me to my next question.
Yeah.
What is Sugaring NYC and how can people get involved?
Sugaring NYC is a national franchise. It is the first national sugaring franchise as opposed to waxing. Our founder started in 2014 sugaring professionally, and she just recognized the need for, it just blew up organically. She started in 2014. In 2015, she opened her first full location with like rooms on the 6th floor. And she opened 2 more locations in the first year. It was that successful. And then by the end of 2016, she opened 2 more in Boston and Chicago. I mean, they were literally just zooming all around, making deposits. And I remember being friends with them at the time and trying to get a hold of them for social reasons. And they were never around. Like, they were like Carmen Sandiego. Like, I would call them and I had no idea what city they were going to be in. Hardest working people I've ever met in my life. Like, I guarantee I don't know anybody else that could have maintained that kind of schedule and run that many businesses in a remote location. It was crazy. But in 2017, they started converting to storefronts, and they opened their first storefronts in Union Square in Astoria. And by the end of 2018, they had 6 more storefronts in New York City. And the model for franchising really started to come together. They really developed their system. They developed the build out plan. They had built so many of these locations at this point that it was really formulated and easy for them to do. And the demand was high, and they realized that they wanted to franchise. And so they learned, I mean, these are people with like no connections in the United States, no one to learn from these things from. And they did their own research, educated themselves, made their own contacts, network the hell out of every opportunity. And in 2019, they started franchising. And we're at 171 units now. So,
woo!
Yeah.
And you're the head of ops.
I'm the head of ops for corporate locations, which are a wonderful kind of controlled ecosystem in which you can test these templates and these systems and disseminate them throughout the organization. You know what I mean? So if any new service, any new system that's going to be disseminated throughout the organization, our franchisees put a lot of trust in us, because when you buy a franchise, you're looking for a proven business model, a recognizable brand, and systems that are already in place. So you don't have to figure everything out on your own. And we take it very seriously to constantly update those systems and constantly improve. And I don't know if everyone thinks about franchising in this way, but it's such a great community. Like, we have all these chats and ways for our franchisees to communicate with one another. And it's so sweet. Like, they give tech support to one another. It's wonderful. And they're so helpful. And it's just such a great, I mean, I never like to say like, oh, it's like a family for business, because I just feel like, you know, who screws you over worse than your family, right, Carl? But it's a family in a good way, you know? It's a functional family that everyone wishes they had.
Chosen family.
So we're constantly updating our systems. We're constantly trying to remain inclusive. And I know that's a buzzword. What do we mean? Well, we were the first hair removal chain to change our language to be gender neutral. And this might not seem like a big deal, but it actually logistically, for a salon or any environment that services genitalia, it's a logistical issue. You know, you want people to be able to book a service and not be confused about which service they should book. And if you have estheticians that don't perform a certain service, you don't want it to be confusing. So in researching how we should do it, trying to see how other companies had done it, we realized that actually no companies were doing it. They all had male Brazilian, female Brazilian. And so we've just changed our below the belt services for Brazilian V for guests with vagina, and Brazilian X in the true sense of the variable for clients, anything but a vagina. You know, clients with a penis, clients that are transitioning, clients that don't know what to choose. It's just X. And it's also very interesting for a national company. We have a lot of locations in coastal cities where this was maybe not a direct, but in coastal cities, it was a foregone conclusion, right? Obviously, this is where everything is going. This is a no-brainer. But, you know, then we have locations in other parts of the country that are maybe not as progressive. And it would have taken them longer to get there on their own if it was totally up to them. and kind of being able to make that push throughout the organization to be more inclusive is a real honor because we're in the business of beauty and it's a service. We're supposed to be making people feel good. So to be able to kind of facilitate that throughout our organization in the whole country is like really a privilege for us. And it's something that maybe not all of our franchisees would have gotten to on their own without that kind of guidance from a larger organization. So it's just kind of an example. I feel like Sugaring NYC is really different. You know, I went to a franchising expo at the Javits and I saw a lot of businesses that were a little bit more plug and play. And I saw a lot of people looking for kind of an opportunity for like the mythical passive income. And, you know, as a franchise, most people are still going to be a small business owner when they're opening that franchise, you know, and you're still going to have to deal with staffing and deal with the hustle. And I think a lot of people aren't prepared for that when they're looking into a franchise. And it's important to be mindful and guide people. And I know that our franchising team really does that. We really prepare people and provide the support. We have an amazing streamlined system for our franchisees when they're opening. Like it really guides them through step by step from finding a location to the day that they open. We're there with them. It's also, if in the salon industry, there's always issues of safety with material. If you open a nail salon, like the ventilation is a huge issue. And with sugaring, it's sugar, water, and lemon. Like technically you could eat it. People do it in like the demonstrations. So it just makes things so much easier as a beauty brand to not have to worry about chemical exposure and risk.
I love that. And Anna, obviously it's a testament to the team growing at the scale that you guys are growing with customers and consumers that are global. So congratulations to both you and the brand for getting to this point. For people that want to get involved, sugaringnyc.com.
Sugaringnyc.com. There's a lot of information. If you scroll down to the bottom of the page, there's a link for franchising. I do also want to get into, Carl, like one of the most exciting things for me in joining this company is that coming from medical science, where I was always like the only woman at the table, I was really very excited about this idea of working at a company that was mostly women for a lot of reasons. But one of my secret favorite things to do used to be in any given situation, pointing out when anything was more difficult to navigate because of like a male ego. Not in a combative way, but just, you know, like, hey, wouldn't it be great if we could just pursue this more efficient course of action and not worry about how so-and-so would feel about it? And I know it's a generalization, but working at a company of women, like there's like almost none of it. And there's none of that, like, you know, having an idea in a meeting and then like 5 minutes later, somebody else like repeating the idea and people being like, oh yeah, that's a great idea. Doesn't happen.
Man, do I love being tranched into a category with a bunch of people like that.
Listen, the exceptions make the rule, Carl. I'm just saying, I anticipated it would be like that, and it's like that. So it's a behavior pattern.
I'm glad that you're now supported by a bunch of empowering women, which is incredible.
It's amazing. And it's also really amazing that this company, it just provides so many opportunities for women and is very women focused. Like our shifts for the estheticians are 9 to 3 and 3 to 9. And that is designed to be friendly to mothers and working mothers. Maybe you can only come when your kids are in school. Maybe you can only come when you have help at the end of the day. We have a lot of rules based around safety. No one closes alone. No one is ever allowed to be left alone. And everything is very pink, as you can see.
Love that. It's one of my favorite colors.
No, but you know, all of our estheticians, you know, when they graduate from esthetician school, they don't know how to sugar. So all of our employees, we train them in this process. We train them in new skills. If you work for us for 3 years, we waive the franchising fee. So we have several franchisees that were estheticians. And watching their growth is really amazing.
It's incredible. Anna, I want to shift gears a little bit into the purpose behind the podcast, being local business hacks. As VP of Biz Dev and operations, I can imagine that you've come across some of your own personal hacks throughout this really vast journey in this space. Talk to me a little bit about what drove your hacks and what are the stories behind them.
I think that from very early on, it's always seemed to me that the path to success, no matter what your job is, whether you're an intern or a CEO, is the same. It's find the need and fill the need. So even if you are buying a franchise and it's a proven business model with systems in place, you're still going to have to find the need and fill the need within your community. Maybe your community needs, just even starting from the location, right? Maybe your community needs a place that is more inclusive. Maybe everything's really expensive. Maybe you want to try to keep your costs down. And we have a lot of different ways to support our franchisee in terms of different kinds of materials they can use for their build out if they can't spend a lot. So, or maybe for your location, you need to create a place that's like a real sanctuary for people to go and have some me time. And the business itself fills a need, because I always look at it like you're selling to your clients, but you're also selling the business to employees, right? Because you want to attract good talent. So we kind of also tried to fill the need of creating a safe place for estheticians where they learn a new skill. There's continuing education. It supports their journey in motherhood and their family lives and creates a safe environment. Because in beauty franchises, that seems to be kind of not always the case. And for our clients, we saw a need for something inclusive, a need for something accessible, technically because our estheticians go through a whole nother series of training after esthetician school. Unlike waxing, you can kind of just put somebody right on the books if they've graduated. We could charge a lot more, but it's important to us that the services be accessible to everyone. So in that way, I think finding the need and filling the need within your immediate community, even if you are opening a franchise, is really important. And I think that kind of will sort of lead you to success as a boss, as a business owner. If you follow that path, there's like kind of no way to fail.
Love that. I got a little personal question for you. So when we talk about mentors and people that you look up to, who would you say is your number one professional mentor?
My number one professional mentor, honestly, Daria, the founder of this current company, is I have learned so much from her. And I think she's like 28 years old. And I always forget how old she is because she's like 75, 80%, like a 90-year-old woman with like the amount of wisdom that she has. And then like every once she'll say something else and I'll be like, that's right, she's under 30.
That's awesome.
But she's just, Daria and Dima, the founders of the company, they are such amazing problem solvers. They're probably my most favorite people to brainstorm with that I've ever worked with in my life. The suggestions range from so practical, you just like want to smack your own head that you haven't thought of it already, to completely unhinged. And I love it. I mean, like, what's better than that?
I agree. Let alone being able to work with that person, support them throughout their journey is even better.
Yeah. I mean, it's important. Like, it makes a difference when you're working to think about who you're benefiting and who you're enriching. And it's so important to work with good people, and loving the people that own the company can only make you, believing in the product is great. I believe in the product, but I also just really like the people I'm working for. And I really like the people that I'm working with, because I've been really fortunate to be able to build my own team. I think that's the only benefit to being a boss, is getting to curate the team that you work with. Also, and being able to opt out of a meeting, right, Carl? Now and then. But having an amazing HR team, having amazing management. And that's also been a great need to fill in beauty, because I think that in any clinical or beauty environment, people often, it's hard to place a value on management because when you've got a business of practitioners, their value is so easy to quantify. And then with management, it's a little bit more difficult. But I always say that if the estheticians are the lifeblood of our organization, then the managers are the backbone, because we wouldn't be able to maintain any kind of structure without them.
Nor are people going to stay in your organization if they're not being supported by other people.
Exactly.
I think that it's
exactly.
A chain of a series of events that has to happen in order for it to be successful. But I love that your mentor is the people that you work with. That's incredible. And it's only more inspiring to where your job won't feel like a job, which is all of our goals in doing this. So congrats, because that's not easy to find.
It's not.
Yeah. I got another personal question for you.
Mm-hmm.
What's your morning routine look like?
What's my morning routine look like? How much time do we have? No, I'm just kidding. Well, I'm really not just saying this, but we do lash lifts and brow laminations, and I am a huge fan of our lash lift. Like, my eyelashes are so straight. They're like, and they're so straight. They actually, like, the top ones will get tangled with the bottom ones. And I don't know if you've ever used an eyelash curler, Carl, have you? Miserable contraption.
Unfortunately, I have not.
Give it a shot. Tape it. I would love to see. So I don't have to put on mascara or curl my lashes, because I take advantage of being able to get a lash lift at work, best day of the month. And I have to worry about, if I'm going out tonight, I don't have to worry about shaving my legs because I already sugared. So there's a lot of my routine that I don't have to worry about and I've taken out just because of the benefits of where I'm working. And I would encourage everyone to invest in things in beauty that just reduce the amount of time you have to spend on anything.
That's in life.
Yeah.
I think any time that we cannot do repetitive tasks.
Working smart in your beauty routine is absolutely a thing.
Or texting and emailing customers when you could use Referrizer to automate the parts of that aspect of your business.
How did you know that's what I was thinking?
I'm just connected with you through Zoom. It's a beautiful thing. Anna, my last question for you is, if we were to look at 18-year-old Anna, or even any entrepreneur looking to start their business today, what's one piece of advice that you would give to them?
I would say that if you're trying to find your niche, you think about the thing that people find the most annoying about you and find a way to sublimate it and put it to your advantage. You know what I mean? So if you're very detail oriented and are driving people crazy, one day everyone is going to want your help when they need to plan a party. So really, I think that's the best way for anyone to find their niche. And maybe you have a wonderful self-awareness and can recognize about yourself, like what you're good at and what that should be for you, but most people don't. And so if you're really trying to find that for yourself, if you think about the things about yourself that drive people crazy, those are probably indicative of your natural strength.
Beautiful way to call me out on some things. Thank you for that. Anna, I so appreciate you getting on and talking to us about how you got here, talking about what Sugaring NYC does and why everybody here, male or female, or however you identify yourself, should go check it out. And once again, for those of you listening, go to sugaringnyc.com and find the nearest location to you. Anna, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story with our listeners all over the world.
Thanks, Carl.
Thank you so much. That's it for this week's episode. I hope you found it helpful. Be sure to head over to our site, local-business-hacks.com, to check out the show notes and send me questions or ideas for future episodes. If you want to grow your business, just like the people you've heard from here, follow Local Business Hacks Podcast and tune in for new tips, tricks, and tactics. Until next time, thanks for listening and keep hacking.